Welcome to the Life and Times podcast. Sit back, enjoy the conversation, enjoy the vibes, and thank you for checking us out. What's up, Z?
Hey, you. How are you?
I'm good. You look nice.
Thank you. As are you. Beard flourishing.
Yeah,
Looking
we
good.
trying. We trying. It's got a couple little grays poking out,
Grades
but
are good. Grades are good.
yeah, that's what I keep hearing. Listeners, welcome back to another episode of the Life and Times podcast, which is short for the Life and Times of a Restaurant Lifer podcast. I'm Adrian. You already know it's no BS coming from me. And for episode 14, we are joined by one of the homies, Zipporah. How are you?
Wonderful. I am so excited to be on here. Absolute restaurant lifer for sure.
Hell yeah. Hell yeah. All right, Z, let the people know, where can they find you?
Yeah, so you can find me at ZipporahMonique.com. You can find me at Instagram, Facebook, and LinkedIn at Zipporah Monique, and that's Zipporah. Well, you see it at the bottom. But
Word.
yes, you can find me everywhere where it says Zipporah Monique. Just hit it in Google and you'll get it all.
All right, word. Cool. We always start the podcast, Z, with something that all of us in the industry are really good at, and that's drinking, mostly alcohol. So I want you to tell the guests, what are you drinking today?
Okay, so today I am drinking some tea. Okay, today I'm drinking some tea. I know you said alcohol, we are drinkers, but it's still before 2 a.m. I mean, it's still before 2 p.m. So, but usually I would have a Scotch margarita in here, some bourbon, or some red wine.
Okay, I'm with that. This is record breaking for me. See, you've already changed me for the better because I'm actually joining you. I have coffee today. I have
Look,
some Colombian coffee. So that's what I'm drinking. This is the first episode where I'm not drinking alcohol and midway somewhat drunk, that sort of thing. So, this is something new. We're all trying new things today.
episode 14 gonna be epic. It's gonna be different.
Right. Different. It's time to set the table, Z. I
Oh, go
always
ahead.
ask a guest a couple questions concerning hospitality, and just so the guests, just so our listeners can get a better idea of who you are. First question: growing up, what was your perception of hospitality workers?
So growing up, I thought they were there to enhance my experience on wherever I went. I thought that they were the guides to the restaurant, to the hotel, to the theme park, whatever. So I really thought that it was more so that they took pride in their work, right?
Okay.
They took pride in what they do. They loved being at work. They loved, doing. They got paid well. That was my perception when I got younger.
Mm-hmm.
Or when I was younger, growing up and getting into the field was definitely eye opening, as you know. It was definitely eye opening. But growing up, I was like, yo, these are like the soldiers. Let's go. They're leaders in their field.
Okay. I like that. What was your first job in hospitality?
My first job in hospitality. Oh my goodness, I have to go back because my
Mm-hmm.
first job ever was at a clothing store, which I love. I feel, is
Okay.
that still hospitality? I don't think that's how it says. That's just in the clothing store.
Retail, but you're dealing with people. Let's talk about it.
Yeah,
I want to know. I want to
yeah.
know about that job.
So that job was actually at it was at Demo in South Lake Mall in Atlanta. I
Okay.
mean in Clayton County.
Mm-hmm.
And it
South
was
side.
really
South side.
right outside. And it was I was like, I just need some money for to do some shenanigans over the summer. I think I was like 16 at the time. I was in high school. I thought I was big and bad, so I got into this job, and it was really just be like being a customer, getting to deal with people, getting to deal with us as us as consumers. And I learned a lot on that job. Like a lot of celebrities came in into demo for some reason on the South Side,
Mm-hmm.
and they were particular about their stuff. Their people was particular. So it was just really learning how to show up. Like I said, like I thought that hospitality workers were these leaders. They love their jobs, and I come in and I'm like, okay, this is a good wage for my age, but I don't want to deal with people's complaints. I don't want to deal with these different things. I don't want to have to deal with their weird requests or whatever the case may be. But I know that I loved it. I loved serving people. I loved the fact of anticipating people's needs and so on and so forth. And that really just carried on to when I did get my first serving job. It was like, this is where I want to be. And I kind of like moved up in that. And yeah, I loved when I did work in the industry. The people that you met, the
Okay,
conversations that you had,
definitely.
the like once you did get it right, once you did get the steps of service right, people don't always get the steps of service right. But once you got the
Right.
steps of service right, then people are happy and they're gonna tip more. So
Definitely. Definitely. What was your first restaurant job?
my first restaurant job was this place called Smoky Bones, another place on the south side. And it was kind of like a family restaurant. I knew at that point that I didn't want to work with kids because they definitely
Man.
they will mess up the table. They will do whatever. They would just their parents is just like we're not at home, so they can do whatever. And I'm just like, no,
Right.
they can't. Right. So after Smoky Bones, I think the next one was Blue Moon, and that's where you and I met. It's at Blue
Yeah.
Moon Pizza, and I worked with Blue Moon Pizza for most of the time that I was in school. Actually, I was working at Blue Moon doing school. Was a server, started as a server, went into bartender, and
Mm-hmm.
then we actually went down to Fort Myers and opened up the Blue Moon Pizza
Mm-hmm.
down in Fort Myers. So it just
Mm-hmm.
it was just beautiful. It was just a beautiful experience with Blue Moon Pizza. And then I went to Houston's and I went to um it was another wine bar, but I knew that the
Okay.
bartending and craft cocktail and wine and all of the above kind of lit your girl up. So yeah.
Nice. Okay. Okay. Now, when it comes to the pizza place, I'm not gonna say their name, but I will
I'm
say the
sorry.
pizza place, right?
Sorry.
No, you're good. Were you a customer before you were an employee?
I don't think I was. I
Okay.
think
Okay.
I think I think that I saw that they were hiring and
Saw
I
an
was like,
ad. Yeah.
here, yeah, I saw that. I was
Okay.
like, okay, this might be good for me. And there I
Because
was.
I ask because a lot of a lot of guys or kids that I used to hire, they were customers first, and then they just popped up and was like, "Hey, I got to this place. I like the vibe. I like the food, and I wanted to apply for a job." Like that's what
Hmm.
like most of my employees, at least for the stores that I was running, that's how I used to hire a lot of them. So
Yeah.
that's why I was wondering.
Yeah. No, they had a really good vibe, really good pizza. I was really like, this is a different pizza. I've never been in a pizza place like this. So I was happy that it was that
Definitely.
because it was like a sophisticated pizza bar essentially.
Yeah, it was like
So yeah.
elevated. Yeah, yeah, it
Hmm.
was a good. It was a good experience. It was a good company to work for
Yeah.
during the golden era when we were
Right.
there.
It was so
I don't.
golden. It's no go it's not
Yeah,
golden anymore. I'm sorry, Blue Blue man. It's
nah,
not golden. I'm sorry. It's
nah.
not golden.
I've
It's not
heard
golden.
stories. I've
Ah,
heard stories, but blessings to them, and hopefully they can get it
amen.
together.
Amen.
All right, last question for setting the table, Z. Do you believe that everyone should have at least one job in the hospitality industry? And more importantly, why?
Absolutely, hands down. Working in the hospitality, you learn so much. You learn people, and everywhere you go, everywhere you are, everything that you are going to do, you have to deal with people. Okay, and if you aren't able to deal with people, anticipate needs, or deal with personalities that that don't match yours, then you're just at a loss. Or dealing with people who are disgruntled. They might not be angry at you, but you still have to diffuse the situation. So we've learned conflict resolution. We've learned customer service. We've learned different cultures. We've learned how to serve at your best. We've learned how to just really deal with people, being empathetic, being compassionate, just being open. And I think some other jobs don't do that, right? You can work in Burger King and no offense to Burger King and McDonald's, but some people will put that in the hospitality. But even in those, there might not be any steps of service. There might not be any front like forward customer, right? But
Right.
actually having a server job, like you really, and then you also learn time management. You also learn organization. You also learn, just following steps and following standards. So I learned so much. So absolutely, absolutely.
I feel that. I feel that. I continue to say it. I'm waiting for the guests that'll tell me like, no, I don't think so, Adrian. So I could just debate them for like a full hour or something. So
Absolutely. And then all your past guests would go on and debate them as well.
exactly.
Like what?
I'll text the group chat and like, y'all jump on. Let's go ahead and get my friend together real quick. All right, before we jump into today's conversation, which I'm very excited about, listeners, if this is your first time checking us out, please like, comment, subscribe, all of that good stuff, as well as follow us on Instagram, as well as YouTube. Very simple, at Suplex Dinner Club. So, working on building a community, and we would love to have you a part of it. So, today's topic, today's topic. Normally, I'll give a little context for our listeners. When I'm talking to our guests going into recording, I normally ask them like, "Yo, what do you want to talk about?" Just so we're both engaged into it, because I'm literally I'm a blank canvas in a sense where if you want to talk about this, we'll talk about this. If you want to talk about that, we'll talk about that. So, because I just love interacting with people, especially more than 90% of you guys I consider friends at one point in my life or another. So it's very easy to have these kind of conversations.
Yeah.
So with you, Z, when I sent you that, the answer that you gave, I just went, oh, okay, okay, let's do it. Let's do it. I think it's only right that you introduce our main topic to the listeners today.
Yeah. Okay, awesome. So Adrian hits me up and he's like, I want you to be on my podcast. And I'm like, of course, anything for you. You know, you the homie.
No doubt, no doubt.
so, so he's like, what do you want to talk about? And I was like, I don't know, even though I have this entire business, right? And I'm like, well, does this even like kind of go with what you got going on? He's like, just like he said, he's a blank canvas. Let's talk about it. Let's go. Let's do it. So I sent over to him the empathy revolution, leveraging
Mm.
emotions for your intel. Um, and I was like, how you feel about that? He was like, nah, let's go. Let's go.
Oh yeah, I was like, yeah, yeah, this is gonna be a good one.
So
Okay.
as we touched on before, empathy. We talked about empathy before in service, right? And empathy
Mm-hmm.
with dealing with people. And the reason why I picked that topic is literally in every space in your life. If you don't have empathy, if you're not putting yourself now, if you're not putting yourself in someone else's shoes or trying to look at them from their side, then we've already lost, essentially. Um, Sympathy is very different from empathy. Sympathy is, dang, I feel sorry for you.
Right.
And empathy is more so, wow, I can understand that you feel that way. How can I help? Right? How can I serve? How can I do? How can I help you move past this, essentially? Um, and I don't think that people understand how important that is. Whether you're an employer, whether you're working with relationships, whether you're working with children, whether you're working all of these different things, people don't understand. So I will be tying this into the industry as well because I feel like that's where I got my first empathetic notion from. But yeah,
Mm.
we're gonna be talking about all that.
Okay. Okay. All right. Uh, do you feel that empathy has been lost in society today's society?
Absolutely. I think not only that it's been lost, but people aren't trying to find it. Like people are
Mm.
like it's a solution to so many. It's a solution to so many different things. Let's say we did disagree on something. A lot of people it's like, no, I'm right, you're wrong. Cut it out, like and
Mm-hmm.
start being belligerent. But if you put empathy into the situation, it's like, yeah, we have different views, and that's okay. You want to go grab a beer? You want to go and talk it over? Just like you said, if someone came in and said, "No, I don't know, like no one needs an industry," we can talk it over,
Right.
right? We can talk it over, right? Okay. But I think that so many people want to force their views and their opinions on someone else and just not be like, okay, we're different, or even how a lot of you see in a lot of industry, you see a lot of in a lot of companies
Mm-hmm.
that their employees don't feel heard, their employees don't feel seen, their employees don't feel like they can actually talk to management, or even sometimes in the industry, the the managers feel like the customers are always right. Well, no, protect your employees, right? You can be empathetic in all areas. So I think that if we bring empathy in a lot of situations, then it wouldn't be a conversation for anything. But I think that people
Mm.
don't know the true definition of it and they don't know how powerful it is.
Definitely. Definitely. I mean, I definitely feel you on that because the reason why I asked is empathy lost. Uh, the past couple years in particular have been there's I've seen more and more people going back and forth online about the most silliest of things. The most silliest of things. Marvel DC versus DC. Uh Wrestling. I'm a wrestling
Yeah,
fan. So
yeah,
one company, if you like this company, that means you hate this company. Like it's stupid to me.
yeah, agreed.
And it's just one of those things like Jordan LeBron, like it's always some kind of silly, useless divide that, and then once you start talking about a little bit more serious things where you're talking about politics, where you're talking about health, because,
Mm-hmm.
there were people who wanted to do this and some
Yeah,
people who didn't want to do this. So,
yeah.
what I'm saying? It's just one of those things where it's like the most silly of things that will absolutely divide people. And I'm not going to just blame social media. I think that's an easy cop out. I
Yeah.
think it's just one of those societal things where it's like not enough of us are pushing back on, hey, this is kind of stupid right now, y'all. Let's not just accept this as being what it is. So that's what.
No, absolutely. And that all goes back to that emotional intelligence that we're talking about, right? Empathy, that is the basis of emotional intelligence. And when you're talking about these silly debates, it's like, what are we really debating? What's the end goal? What's the solution? Because even if I say that Jordan is better than LeBron, then what's going to happen? Do I get a cookie? Do I get a award? Like, what happens at that point? So it is these useless things, but I think people latch on so much to differences or offense or my opinion matters when really it's the correlation of everybody's decision that matters, right? Because we can't
Right.
even have this debate about Jordan LeBron or DC Marvel or politics if someone doesn't have an opinion. So just respect everybody's opinion as opposed to like I never was that person to what is it they call them troll online like
Yeah.
just out here for just out here for endless time trolling online for no reason. It's just absolutely it's lost because people really they latch onto being the loudest and the wrongest in my opinion.
All the time. all all of the time, all of the time. So when we're talking about empathy, let's apply it to everyday life or
Yeah,
whatnot, because a lot of the listeners, a lot of them, they haven't worked in restaurants like us.
Yeah, yeah,
So let's first talk about relationships. Let's talk about relationships. Be it
yeah,
with a significant partner, parents, siblings, that sort of thing.
yeah. And I'll start with this is that one thing that I learned in the service industry was when people came to my table or people came to my section or people came to my bar, I always thought that they were coming into my home. How would I like
Mm,
to serve my guests inside of my home? Right? Or how would I want to be served when I'm coming into a restaurant or coming into someone's home? So
right.
that's where the empathy starts, right? Relationships or anything else, how do I want to be treated? Right? People are going to have, you don't know what people are going through on it. It doesn't even matter if you are with this person 24 hours a day. You have no idea what's going on in this person's mind. So you just have to be soft and graceful, right? I think empathy really starts with humanize being a human first, right? And then giving grace, not only to
Definitely.
yourself, but that person. And I think that's a lost art for sure, that grace piece. Um, because when we're talking about relationships, not everybody knows how to deal with relationships.
Mm,
Communication, relationships, one of the long-term relationships is just, it's hard to mold these different puzzle pieces that, you have to mold these different opinions, these different preferences, all these different things, and this insight, these different experiences. Because,
mm,
like you said, family before, the generation that came before us, the generation that came before us, they saw very different things, right?
definitely.
Than what we're
Definitely.
doing. So they're gonna give you some pushback on your decisions and who you are. Not necessarily who you are, but some who you are. But you just have to be able to place boundaries. I think that when we're talking about empathy, we're placing boundaries. Like, hey, I can respect your decision on not wanting me to do this or wanting me to do that, and so on and so forth. But this is my boundaries. This is my wants and my desires. And then that starts with knowing who you are and knowing what you want. Because a lot of
Mm,
people, they flow into what everybody else's wants and they be really dependent on everybody else's decisions and wants because they don't know themselves. And then they push it back and say, oh, you're forcing me to do this, when no, the empathy is, how can I give myself grace at this time? How can I self reflect? And how can I be able to voice my boundaries, essentially? I feel like that was a
okay.
long winded answer, but I went all the way around.
Nah, nah, you got that. Yeah, yeah, yeah. So when it comes to setting those boundaries in relationships, which are very key, which are very vital, um, let's I my question to you is when you're setting those boundaries, how do you approach that breaking point boundary where it's like, okay, if you can't get with this, then we can't continue.
Yeah, which is a very hard place to be, right? And
Right.
I don't want to ever downplay that, but what I think getting to that point is knowing that you are going to be okay after. Like a lot of people in relationships say, "Hey, I trust you. I trust you. I trust you with all my
Definitely.
secrets. I trust you with all these different things." But they forget to trust themselves. That,
Mm,
hey, if this relationship doesn't work out, if this isn't what we planned it to be, then I trust myself to pick up the pieces. I trust myself to heal afterwards. I trust myself that I know my choices, I know my boundaries, I know what I can and can't do, I know what my non-negotiables are. And if you aren't able to adhere to them, if you're not able to do those things, then I have to set a heavy boundary. So that means disconnecting from you, right? That means not talking to
mm,
your mama for a while. That means not talking to your brother for a while. That means having 6 months of distance from whomever. That means breaking up. That means trusting that your boundaries are important, because sometimes we sabotage ourselves
definitely.
to um to make someone else happy. And
Mm,
then we're only dealing with the internal battle that we have by making that decision. But if we already set those boundaries in the beginning, like, hey, I didn't like when you did that. Next time, can we handle that a little bit better? Okay, that's my first boundary.
Right,
Okay.
right,
Then you
right,
cross that boundary again. Hey, we talked about that. That's something that that I trust. Hey, I'm not willing to go through that with you, so on and so forth. On the third boundary, hey, look,
right.
this is something that I said that was very important to me, and now it seems like it's not important to you. So we're going to have to change some things up here.
Okay,
And
okay.
I think that trusting yourself and really owning the confidence in you deserve the world. You deserve whatever you want. You can paint yourself this fairy tale. You can paint yourself this fairy tale and it will come true. All of those things. But with any relationship, with anything. So yeah,
Okay. Yeah, and that can be applied to professionally as well, and
absolutely.
just any type of relationship. So I feel that. I respect that. Now,
Absolutely.
you mentioned something earlier that bringing it back into the service industry,
Hmm.
that one of your biggest lessons in empathy was introduced to you while working in the service industry. So, can you elaborate on that? Like, tell me about that.
Yeah, I think so this family comes in
Mm-hmm.
to sit down. It was literally a lunch rush that we usually have. This and it was two adults and four their children, for their young children, okay? And like I told you.
Already off to a bad start. Already off to a bad start.
Let me go ahead and get y'all to go cups. Let me go ahead and get y'all extra napkins. um and you can just see the frustration on the parents.
Mm-hmm.
You could just see the frustration on the parents. So I think we got done serving them. They're literally struggling through this lunch, and then at the end, I'm like, ask them, are you in town? Are you visiting? So on and so forth. They was like, yeah, we were just driving through Atlanta. Our car broke down. We just walked up the block. We just wanted to have some lunch, and um we just wanted to have some lunch, and I'm just like, well, that's why they're struggling. And when I say struggling, they're also making me struggle because they struggling.
Yes, you
When
are a
these
part of
guys,
this
right?
struggle bus. Yes.
When the guests sit down, not only they're gonna bring their emotions into the service, right? So they're cut and dry
Definitely.
with me. They're not making eye contact. They're not saying please and thank you. They're not giving me anything. So I allowed them to warm up. I allowed them at least to get some food in their system, and then we can talk about it later. So then I had a really gracious manager at the time, and she was like, she just comped some of their meals. We gave them some, just extra food to bring with them, and so on and so forth. And they left the restaurant just feeling so much better. They left the
Mm,
restaurant just with just a renewed sense of humanity. They left the restaurant just with some weight off their back, just because they could have a good meal in the middle of a hard time. So after you do that, after you see how you can change people's or attitudes or situation with just a little bit of kindness,
mm-hmm.
you should be hooked at that point. You should be
I
hooked at
feel
that
that.
point.
I feel that. I feel that
Yeah,
because it's one of those things where we don't know how powerful our words and actions are to other
that's it.
people,
That's it.
and we lose sight of that a lot of times. And the old saying goes like, you just smile at a stranger and you can affect their emotional trajectory. Like that person that you're standing next to on the train could be having the worst day of his life, but you just smile and say hello. Maybe that gives him a ray of hope
Absolutely.
versus the opposite end. So,
Absolutely.
um, okay, so if you were to have like one bit of advice for our listeners, one bit of advice in being more empathetic or a challenge, what would that challenge be?
I think I have a two-part challenge.
Yeah, do it. Let's get it.
But one is to pay attention to your emotions. We said earlier, leveraging your emotions for your intel. Your
Mm-hmm.
emotions is literally your sixth sense. If you are angry at something, if you feel sad about something, you feel guilty about something, if you feel happy about something, if you feel joyful about something, pay attention to those things because it literally feeds into what you need to do with it. If you feel angry about something, there's something in you that haven't healed yet. If you feel guilty about something, that's something that you haven't released in your past. If you feel joyful about something, then that's something that you should continually do and try to make time for, and just to be a non-negotiable. If you catch yourself smiling, at the funniest things, that's just something that brings you passion. And I think that people don't pay attention to their emotions. Like I tell my clients, my coaching clients, to write down your emotions, write down the emotions that you go through on a daily basis. And for me, for women, we go through these hormonal imbalances every week of the month, right?
Men,
All month.
men
Men
too.
too, men too, men too. I agree,
Believe
men
me,
too.
I've seen it. I've seen it.
Well, we all do, but just being able to shine a light on that and being able to notate that so then you can figure it out, right? This made me triggered, this made me happy, this made me sad, this made me, a lot of people throw around the word depressed, but sometimes when depressed is literally we're not operating in the person that we want to be, right? It's
Mm,
kind of like this disconnect. It's just trying to, oh man, I want to be this person, but I'm here.
mm-hmm,
And then you focus on the here as opposed to the solutions to be this person, and then we
mm,
internalize and then be depressed. And it's just like the motivation is going to come when you get there. The motivation is going to come once you start doing. So once you start doing, then it's going to come, and then you can be that person. So so that's one. I would say definitely pay attention to your emotions, write them down, figure out what they mean for you. And then number two is really operating at your most courageous self. Ask yourself every single day, how do I operate in my most courageous self? A lot of dreams or a lot of people don't obtain the things that they want because they are feeling guilty about the past, or they're thinking about the opinions of others, or they're listening to that little voice in their head saying that they can't do it, or last time they tried it they can't do it anymore. But
right.
if you literally tap into your most courageous self, and um you really own and believe that, you can really do anything that you want. So I would say start asking yourself, who am I at my most courageous self?
Nice. I like that. Actually really good advice. I'm
Yeah,
taking
thank
that.
you.
I'm gonna take that advice.
Check.
Yeah, yeah. You have anything else when we're talking about empathy, or more so leveraging, like you said, leveraging your emotions? I think that's really that hit home for me
Yeah.
because just working with different people, um, relationships in the house, out of the house, all of that kind of sort of thing. Like you do have to leverage your emotions. You do have to check yourself sometimes. So I'm gonna speak on that.
Yeah, I think, and you said check yourself sometimes. I am
Yeah.
such a check myself every day, every hour person. Like, don't be like me, because so many people are like, girl, you too hard on yourself. But I do think that self reflection is so good. Like, and when you are able to self reflect and you are able to look within and figure out, well, how could I have made that better? Like, things aren't gonna go like things aren't gonna go your way. Like, life is life, and life be lifing essentially.
Straight up.
So making sure it's not about what happens, because guess what? Like, everything, the ups and downs, right? Your heartbeat isn't like this because you be dead, right? It's the ups
Right.
and downs, right? The systolic and the diastolic, right? It's an up and down. It's a 120 over 80 for a reason. There's going to be highs and lows, so you really have to understand how to deal with the highs and lows. So many people in the lows, they stay there. Like, this is a low point in life. I'm gonna ride with it. I'm gonna keep it on my shoulder. I'm gonna keep it on my sleeves. But once you start realizing that if I bring grace and empathy into this, then I can really thrive, right? Because let's
Mm-hmm.
say I'm at my lowest of lows. If not only do I need to use empathy, I can get my support system to use empathy with me. That's how you can
Mm,
leverage empathy. Like, hey, I'm at a low right now. Support system, rally up. I need my troops. Come on,
mm,
I need to be loved on, right? And not just sitting in solitude. Or even where we're at the highest of highs, a lot of people don't like to celebrate. We literally accomplished one of our highest goals, and then we're like on to the next. What's next? What's
mm,
next? Celebrate, sit in that celebration, right? Or some people get nervous when the highs be so high, they be like, when is the foot gonna fall? When is the shoe gonna drop?
mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
it's like, stay, just own that you are that person to deserve that. So I think when we're talking about empathy in all of these situations, it's not only admitting empathy, but also you're going to get that back and asking for that back and not being too strong to be like, come celebrate with me or come be in the trenches with me, right? I think all of
Mm.
that is very, very important. And being honest with yourself is also a part of empathy. Um, when you are at those times, that's why you got the relationships around you, right? A lot of people don't leverage the relationships. They don't leverage the empathy that they have because people have known you all these years, right? And you're like,
Right.
oh, I can't go to them and talk to them about this. You can talk to them about when we're high
We're
and good
kicking it.
and yeah,
Yeah.
right. They should be the same people that you can talk business about. They should be the same people that you can talk that when you're in trenches about. They should be the same people that you can like, hey, I got an idea. Can I run this by you? Hey,
Mm.
like, I got some character questions, can you help me with this? Like I'm trying to grow myself. And they should be celebrating with you in that as well. Um, so man, with relationships, and I feel like relationships is just one of those things that you're going to have to continue to learn and continue to just grow in. Always be a constant learner. Always be a constant learner. Um, Another part about empathy is active listening. That's
Definitely.
something that's a lot. Active listening, not hey, I'm listening to you, but I already got something that I'm about to tell you. Like
Right.
I got her queued up. Like no, listen, actively listen to that person and hear what they're saying. Not hear what they're saying while you're triggered. Not hear what they're saying with the blockers on. Not hear what they're saying because I got something for you after you say this. No, actively hear what they're saying because that can really open up some things to have their feeling or how y'all can fix something. And I guess the third thing to that is
Yeah.
vulnerability.
Add to it.
Yeah, right. The third thing is that me and my friend we talked to about a lot is vulnerability. So
Okay.
many people's afraid of vulnerability, but when we're unable to be vulnerable, then we have surface connections, right? Just like we said, you can celebrate with me, we can be partying, we can be it's lit, whatever.
Right.
But then when I'm in the trenches and you're not able to be there for me, you don't have the capacity for me then.
Right.
That's because our connection is surface, right? When we
Mm.
get into these vulnerable spaces, when we stop with the small talk, when like your podcast, you ain't with the bullshit. When you get into the places that ain't with the bullshit, then you can really have deep conversations. You can really have this deep connection. You can really go however many months without talking to this person, and you pick up 6 months later and still because y'all have that space and y'all own that space and then y'all respect that space. So I
Right.
think that people should jump more into vulnerability and more into that comfortable nature because that's when you get the best experience and the best connections. And that's part of empathy as well.
Mm. Hey, you. Yes. You did that, Z. So,
Well, thank
uh,
you.
round of applause. Round of applause. Yeah.
Just
See,
give me a
I knew,
nugget.
I knew, I knew when you sent that message or when you replied, I was like, oh yeah, this is good stuff. This is golden for me.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. And watch next week. I'm just talking football with someone. Just
It's okay. We said that
yeah.
episode 14 was gonna be different. We already said that. So
Indeed. Indeed. No, no. Like I will say I mean the episodes, the topics have ranged everywhere from
everywhere.
relationship advice to uh, something happening on social media or something
Love
more
it.
important, like all kinds of stuff. So that's
Love it.
that really that really speaks to what we're trying to do with the podcast, which is show all of these different kind of conversations and connections within this industry, this super crazy,
Yeah.
sometimes insane industry of hospitality. So,
Insane and lemon burn.
no doubt.
Sorry, yes. But I agree. And I love what you're doing too. I love what you're doing. I love how you're bringing everybody together with that same thing. And then you see how they branched off because we've met so many people and they branch off to these different things. It's like, oh, wow, that's crazy. Now they're musicians. Now they're in football. Now they're
Mm-hmm.
doing all these different things. So I'm so happy that you came back around with this. So
Yeah,
thank
no
you.
doubt. No doubt. No doubt. I'm very thankful that you joined for sure. Um,
Absolutely.
I have a question from last week's guest. This is
Okay.
something that we do every week. Last week's guest will leave you a question, and then
Okay.
after you answer, you have to leave a question for next week's guest. So,
Okay.
are you ready?
Let's do it.
Okay. So, last week's guest, Dom, y'all check out that episode. It was a cool conversation with one of my homies who loves wrestling. He's good people. Shout out to the It Doesn't Matter podcast, by the way. His question for you, Z, is what's standing in your way of being great?
Hmm. 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 Do it again. Ask me. I wasn't ready. Remember when you asked me if I was ready? I wasn't ready. So do it again.
Right. Okay.
Do it again.
Okay. Dom asked, what's standing in your way of being great?
Oh, that is so good. That's such a good question. Thank you, Don. Um, and thank you for having this segment. Um, the first thing that came to my mind, it
Mm-hmm.
would be self-sabotage, right? We were
Okay.
talking earlier about just um just operating your gifts and doing your thing. And I also told y'all earlier that you're I'm hard on myself and so on and so forth.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that sometimes that mixes with self sabotage and it really allows you to have that immobility essentially.
Mm.
Um, like, hey man, I really want to do this. It's such a grand goal because I don't have these small goals. Okay, so I have these grand goals, and it's
Definitely.
like, okay,
Definitely.
well, where do I start? Where do I start here? Do I start here? Do I start here? And then because I overanalyze the start instead of just starting,
Mm.
then it just slows down the process or it makes it a little bit. So I would definitely say self sabotage, and not like a grandiose scheme, but just I think we all have that little voice in our head that tells us we can't do it. So, with the self sabotage, I also have different practices that I use to combat those. So I
Okay.
meditate, or meditation has been amazing for me. Journaling has been amazing for me. I also listen to high frequency YouTube videos. I also listen to a lot of autobiographies, which kind of helped me as well because in every autobiography they tell you they had that little voice in their head too, right? Or it just
Mm-hmm.
came with one small idea that really kind of snowballed into this big thing because they focused. So those are just some practices that I use, but I feel like everybody does go through that self sabotage, but it's very very doable to get through for sure. So thank you, Dom. Thank you, Adrian.
Yeah. Shout out to Dom. Shout out to him. I actually gave him some crap on that question
Why?
be- because it was so similar. It was so similar to the previous week's question. And I was like, come on, bro. And he was like, man, that was on my heart, man. I was like, you know what? You know what? You got it.
Cool.
So actually it worked out perfectly because you
Yeah.
gave out a well thought out answer. So shout out
So
to
what was
you.
the question before? Thank you. What was the question before?
The question before was from Phil, a guy I bartended with,
Mm-hmm.
and his question for Dom was, okay, if what was it? He said, um, as an entrepreneur, what's standing in your way from bringing your business to the next level? So
Okay.
I felt
Yeah.
they were kind of
Okay.
similar, but
Okay.
I meant these were two different, completely different answers and different
Yeah.
directions. So
Yeah.
it was good.
Okay.
So moving forward, I will not push back on the guests when they ask a question because who knows what's the answer. So shout
That's
out to
true.
them.
That's true. Okay.
All right, what's your question for next
Oh
week's
my
guest?
gosh. I feel like I gotta be all philosophical now. Let me see. Let me see. Okay, this might be a stretch, but
Go for it.
um, where do you find yourself triggered the most,
Okay.
and what are you doing to provide a solution when you're triggered?
Mm, okay. I like that. That's a good one.
Since we
That's a,
talked about
and
emotions and you turn emotions into it had to be about emotions.
okay, I'm with that. I'm with that. All right. Last thing to
Yeah.
contribute. Last thing that we do, our guests and myself, we always add to the Life and Times playlist. Listeners, look it up on Spotify. The Life and Times playlist. It's a curation of vibes, moods. I meant bops here and there, curated by the host Adrian and our weekly guests. So Z, what two songs are you adding to the playlist?
Y'all, I gotta look into my hold on. It is going to be oh my gosh, hold on.
That's cool.
Anything by Jules, but definitely Jamestown Riddim.
Okay. Okay. I gotta look that
Yes.
up. Or yeah,
Okay.
yeah, yeah. Okay.
But anything by him is absolutely amazing. Um, and I don't know if y'all got jazz before, but I'm gonna give you Boogaloo Blues by Johnny um Colin and Orchestra.
Nice. Okay. Okay. And that's the second or third. So we still we got some
Good.
really good
Okay.
songs on there. Yeah, we got some good moods on there for sure.
I love it.
It's not just Gucci every week
Yeah.
on this playlist. Even though, hey, if you add Gucci to the
Look,
playlist, add brother Roderick.
please.
Shout out to him. All right, I have two songs that I'm adding, of course. Judas and the Holy Mother of Stank, and that's
Okay.
by Black Odyssey. Have you heard Black Odyssey before?
I'm not, but I'm writing it down right
Uh,
now.
I'm gonna send you one of his albums. We're actually going to see him live next month or in a couple
Oh, nice.
weeks. So yeah, we're looking forward to that. I haven't been to Chicago in a little second, so that's gonna be awesome. Very
That's
dope mood.
awesome.
Yeah, dope mood. That's a terrific album, terrific project. Highly recommended. Second song is by Pink Siifu, and the name of the song is Back. It's from the project.
Mm.
It's from the project Gumbo, which was probably one of my favorite albums of 2021 during
Okay.
the COVID time or whatever. It's very experimental. It's hip hop, rock, little funk, soul,
Love it.
like it's all kinds of. It's like a gumbo. So that's
I
part of
love
the reason why he
it.
called it that.
It's a
So
good, yeah.
yeah, he's a dope creative and shout out to him. So,
I love it.
listeners, again, look it up exclusively on Spotify, the Life and Times playlist. All right, cool. So, Z, we've reached the end of the podcast. How do you feel?
I feel amazing. Great conversation. Great host. I
Cool.
couldn't ask for more.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for joining us for sure, Z. Once again, Z, let the people know where can they find you.
Yes, you can find me on one. You can find me on LinkedIn for sure, under Zipporah Monique. You can find me at zipporahmonique.com. You can also find me on Instagram at Zipporah Monique, and you can also find the three books that I've written on Amazon under Zipporah Monique.
Nice.
So yeah.
Okay. 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 Uh, what's the names of the books? Give us the titles.
Yes. So the first title is called Crowned, Unleashing the Queen Within. The
Okay.
second title is Reclaim Your Brain, which is emotional intelligence. Um, it's an emotional intelligence workbook for women of color, and
Okay.
the last one is um, Emit Your Intel. It's just about emotional intelligence within the workplace.
Nice. Okay. All right.
Yeah,
Can you send me a link to those, please?
I got
Because
you.
we support homies over here. So
Thank you. I appreciate that.
yeah, no doubt, no doubt. Listeners, thank you again for checking us out. Like I said before, I really appreciate y'all support, feedback, whether it's good or bad. I'm very thankful for that. We're trying to make this better, bigger, and better each week. So shout out to you. If you haven't already, look us up on YouTube. Videos are live there. Instagram at Suplex Dinner Club. And of course, you got to check out on Mondays, we talk college football on Dogs versus All Y'all, where we don't just talk about the Georgia Bulldogs. We talk about all things college football. So shout out to that podcast. Wednesdays, you know the vibes. It's the Life and Times podcast. And definitely on Thursdays, you got to check out the We're All Marks Anyways podcast. Shout out to those fellas. I'm 1/4 of the team. And we talk about professional wrestling, hip hop, life, that sort of thing. So it's always a fun time there. So shout out to those guys. And shout out to the pod family. Everybody doing their thing and trying to provide good quality content for the people. So shout out to the people, of course. So thank you all again for checking us out. Take care of each other. We'll see you next week. Peace.
I would be the pilot. You would be a passenger. I am an innovator. You are an imitator. I'm a leader. You are a follower. I am a winner, and all of you are losers for believing in one thing. Believing that Ricky Steamboat can beat me. At my game, are you kidding me? I'm the best that's ever stepped in the squared circle, bar none, because I have the one thing that every man fears. Think you can handle that? So what I have to tell you, Ricky Steamboat, number one, if you believed it took 2.5 months for me to sign a piece of paper against you, that's a very large mistake. And number two, Ricky Steamboat, is this. I have dreams that I will fulfill. Your dreams started high in the clouds. Oh, yeah, right up there. That's where they all start now, isn't it? But the sad thing about it is they're going to end up going down the drain. This Monday night, West Palm Beach Auditorium, my man, I will own you.
Yo, listen, hold up. You know what it is. Yeah. Now listen, that's called my boy. You know nothing about that. Put him on the camera. Fact.
Ricky Steamboat can beat me. At my game, are you kidding me? I'm the best that's ever stepped in the squared circle, bar none, because I have the one thing that every man fears. Think you can handle that? So what I have to tell you, Ricky Steamboat, number one, if you believed it took 2.5 months for me to sign a piece of paper against you, that's a very large mistake. And number two, Ricky Steamboat, is this. I have dreams that I will fulfill. Your dreams started high in the clouds. Oh, yeah, right up there. That's where they all start now, isn't it? But the sad thing about it is they're going to end up going down the drain. This Monday night, West Palm Beach Auditorium, my man, I will own you.
Yo, listen, hold up. You know what it is. Yeah. Now listen, that's called my boy. You know nothing about that. Put him on the camera. Fact.